It's 6:33, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Ordinance Review Committee, for an ad hoc committee of the Easthampton City Council. And the participants in this meeting are gathered remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic as a result of an executive order by Governor Baker on March 12th, 2020, allowing us to do so. Hi, Officer Sichi.
No.
It's 6:34. We have minutes to approve. Let me see. Well, first, is there anyone from the public that has anything to say besides what's on the agenda? Nope. Okay. All right. We have minutes from March 15th, April 19th, and May 3rd. Do you want to make a motion to approve these minutes? Did you have a chance to look them over?
Yes.
Okay.
Should that be separate motions or?
Unless somebody feels they're going to have something to say about one of them. Otherwise, I think we can do them together.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the aforementioned minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I can second that.
Okay. All in favor of approving, Sam is here now too, approving the minutes from March 15th, April 19th, and May 3rd, 2021. Omar?
Aye.
Helen? I saw your mouth saying aye.
Yeah,
Tom?
sorry.
Aye. Okay. Sam?
Aye.
Any discussion? Okay. Thus, so the minutes are, what do you say, accepted into the record and will be forwarded on to our city clerk. Omar, you still have one set, right? That you are
Yes, and I'm taking notes today. I'm volunteering myself to do it today.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So we got kind of a lot of input from previous kind of reaching out. So I want to go through that before we hit the animal control. I have a bunch of different topics. I'm sorry I forwarded them all today. So you probably didn't get a chance to really read them all, but this one, I don't even know if I forwarded. This was from when we were asking about the signs in section 874 and section 876. Maybe I can share my screen and put it up. Well, there wasn't much to say. I reached out to the Board of Public Works because it said that they permit some signage in the town, and we just wanted to know if they do that, in fact. And he said that the permitting is fairly narrow under those sections, and in the 2 years he's been on the BPW, they've had no signage issues come before the board. So he said either no applications on those specific types of signage have been made, or they have not been forwarded to the board. Most signage in the city is covered by zoning ordinances, section 10.0. So let me turn back to chapter, he said it's 874. That's what I had asked him about, 874. Permit required to erect certain signs extending over public ways. Does that mean over public ways, like across a road, or is that what it means, over a public way?
I mean, sometimes they put up banners across roads for events or something.
And 876.
I would think that would fall under the building inspector.
Yeah. Permit required for erection of certain signs by nonprofit organizations, term, renewal, penalty, injunction. Special advertising displays or banners visible from the highway, public park, or reservations by churches, civic, or charitable organizations. So we were wondering about, I guess those are the ones when you're coming down 141 and there's the church dinners, whatnot. Just where those, do they get permission, or?
I think that's on private. Yeah.
It's on private property there, right?
Property.
That's Whitney's property.
My apologies for coming in late. I was having technical difficulties. Do you need me to take minutes today, Lindsay, or did you figure that out while I was
Omar's
meeting?
doing it.
Yep.
You're
Okay.
lucky. Omar's
Thanks,
doing it.
Omar. Sorry.
I was just going over kind of correspondence I've gotten back from different entities, and one was from Tom Malsbury, the Board of Public Works chair, and it doesn't say, and he was saying about 8.74 and 876 that he hasn't ever seen that come in the 2 years he's been on the Board of Public Works, any kind of permitting. But it doesn't say that these, remember this was about signs or banners visible from highway or public parks or reservations by churches, civic or charitable organizations. It doesn't say that they're on public land though. It just says visible from, I mean, it's just one of these things. Are these like dead ordinances is kind of my thinking.
To me, it seems like all signage, if there's any permits to be issued, it would all fall under the building department and the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so I'll just put a note that maybe we recommend seeing if these are even, should be here. So that's 874 and 876. Are these needed?
I was on 876. I was wondering if that was even permissible.
What do you mean? Like the ordinance or putting the banner there?
Well, because that seems to be one where it's not. I mean, there's the one where it's going over a public way, and I understand that. On this one, it's just it's just certain types of signs that are viewable from certain places, and for some reason it falls under the Board of Public Works. I mean, it seems really weird. As far as the jurisdiction that it falls under, and also the idea that the Department of Public Works would have kind of final say over whether a civic organization or a church could put a sign up. The way I was reading this, and maybe I'm reading it completely wrong, but if and I don't know if a highway is, if there's a park across the street from a church, that has a sign there, they would have to get permission from the Department of Public Works to have it.
Well, you can't put a sign on a park anyway.
No, it wouldn't be in the park. It would be visible from
the park.
No.
It seems really odd.
Okay, well.
Right, and I mean, like, I can understand it. This is another situation like the leafleting, right? Like, I can understand if they were trying to solicit for profit, like some kind of advertising, but like the discretion of the Board of Public Works in light of like who decides the location, the character of the matter displayed,
Right, and these are the organizations that, with regard to the leafleting, these are the folks that we were like, yeah, no, this sounds great. It should be more permissible for these organizations to leaflet than it would be for kind of a for-profit business organization. That's kind of where the conversation was going. But this thing's from 1945. I say ditch it.
I think this whole thing should go because signs are already covered in the zoning ordinance, and they're issued, sign permits are issued by the building department. So
okay, so we'll recommend scrapping that.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Clean it up. Okay, zoning ordinance. Okay.
We're gonna knock like 20 solid pages off of this ordinance.
I know, we're just like done. And then what else did I send you guys? Oh, Officer CP sent us some information too. About the anti-bias training, and then the Lyft and Uber. Did people get a chance to look at what?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in Chapter 9, vehicles for hire, it seems like that chapter is really outdated as well, and we don't have any in town. So
Well, I mean, this is a relatively new chapter. I mean, a lot of it is, if you'll see. And we have had some taxi businesses, and I'm not actually sure that Aaron's is gone. I don't know. But if this is pretty new.
Okay.
We were just talking about like, and we,
2014.
yeah, that was amended in 2014. Our thing that we were discussing last time, Barb, was we were sort of talking about the fact that, and actually we got a letter from this, like we weren't clear how any of this applied, if at all, to say Uber or Lyft.
Yeah, that is it. Yeah, that none of this. I mean, those weren't even in discussion at that point. So.
And,
Yeah.
And I think that would be really hard to permit locally. Every Uber driver, every Lyft driver. I mean, these are just businesses, taxi businesses with taxi drivers, with, marked taxis. And it's a nightmare for my office, I'll tell you that. It really is.
But there aren't any now in Easthampton?
Well, Aaron's was the last one, Aaron's Paradise. And they had a license last year. It's renewable in May. I reached out to Bob, to the police chief, and he wasn't sure they were still in business. They had moved to 150 Pleasant Street. But we've had a couple, taxi businesses in town. I mean, there are taxis that come into Easthampton, but this would only be if the business is based here.
Yeah, that was one of our questions too.
Yeah, we've had them. And like this, I mean, every May he would have to renew have to have all the cabs inspected by the police department. And I have to get a picture, and we got to find out that they've been inspected and they got their registration. And then every taxi driver, and taxi drivers come and go really like a lot. So it was, you'd get somebody that would apply for a taxi license and they would be done and gone in a week. So I don't know. I guess I'd wonder what other communities do. I mean, because if there is a taxi cab business that opens in town, there should be something regulated.
Regulated, should definitely.
Yeah.
And there are one or two taxi companies in Northampton that operate out of Northampton, right?
There are, yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's nothing saying they can't come to Easthampton. This would just be for a business that's located in Easthampton.
Right.
Right. Yeah, because there's at least, there's several in Northampton. So I wonder if we, do we all want to just review what their ordinance is in relation to that, just so we have something, in case somebody does want to open up. I think with Uber and Lyft, I find it unlikely that somebody's going to open a new taxi company here, but
not necessarily.
Not necessarily. And Barbara, what we were talking about too is like, there are situations where people don't have a cell phone, or, don't have internet access and don't have the option to just like call an Uber or call a Lyft and still use taxi companies. And I don't know about Easthampton, but I know there are other cities in Mass that actually their senior supplements for transport is actually like a taxi voucher for a taxi company. So not actually like in Worcester, it's like that. It's basically a taxi ride voucher that they get as seniors. And to my knowledge, I don't know of any city in Mass. I don't know about Boston, but that's using like Uber or Lyft for that kind of service for seniors, So, it might be good to have something on the books.
Yeah. Well, we have something on the books. So was there ever any issues with this, Barb, when you had to implement it, besides that it was a pain?
It's a pain it's a lot of work, because if you look at all the things that a business owner is required to show, all the insurance, and I have to say that it's pretty involved, and a lot of these owners that we've had so far have struggled with providing the information that this ordinance says that we have to have. I find it to be really, it's just a lot.
So,
You wanna,
Like if you scroll down to the insurance section, I mean, it's up one. Yeah. No, keep going up. Right, right in here. Yeah, the policy tells what the policy has to have. I mean, I think, I don't know, and that's.
I guess so. Here's my sort of feeling on this. It's not a fully articulated thought, but maybe it'll help. It feels weird that, okay, so you've got taxis and then you've got these ride sharing apps that are competing with taxis. And we have all these regulations for taxis and zero regulations for the ride sharing apps. And that disparity to me, it just doesn't sit really quite right. Like, for everything that you could say why you would want to regulate a taxi company, I think I could turn around and say, well, wouldn't you want to regulate Uber and Lyft the same way? And so it just feels to me like I don't know what the right, like this would probably be like a project for a counselor, but I feel like you want to either find a way to regulate Uber and Lyft, or you want to ease some of these regulations, because otherwise, like, you're just making life a lot harder for one of these sorts of businesses, and still their competitors is just the Wild West.
right.
Yeah, I think trying to regulate like Uber and Lyft, I mean, these are just individual people who just do it. I don't know how you would ever be able to keep track of people who do that. I mean, a business is one thing, but trying to, I mean, if I think this is a nightmare, I mean, does anybody have any idea who drives for Uber or Lyft in Easthampton? I have no clue. I think it would just, I don't know. I
don't know how you go about doing it.
But
You know that there's some big cities have talked about doing stuff with that. Probably have more resources than we do, though. So yeah, I just don't know. But somehow, all I'm saying is that disparity between a regular taxi company and what ride sharing apps, like what the regulatory burden is on them, it just, that's really all I would put right now in the report, is just to say, like, there's a sort of troubling disparity in the regulatory burden between these various things, and someone should probably look into that.
and Tom, I just forwarded today, so you might not have seen it yet, but Officer Cici sent us
I did see it.
some articles about Uber and Lyft, and just he commented on that.
Yeah. Those are to do with the classifications of the worker, right?
Yeah, they are.
So Barb, is it mostly a nightmare for the person that is applying for permitting for a taxi business in Easthampton, or is it also a pain in the butt for you?
It's both. And also, I think the police department would also say it's a burden, because they, according to this, they have to inspect all the taxis. Now, how they, what they really have to do, they also have to sign off on every single taxi operator, every single person who applies for a taxi license, and also they have to sign off on it. So I think that, I think the biggest burden is on me, my office, because I know nothing about taxis. It seems strange that it would all fall under me, but trying to keep, and then the business owners, it's a lot to do. And then trying to keep their drivers updated, they have to, fill out an application, they have to pay, they have to go to the police department, get it signed off, they have to go get a picture, I have to make a license. It's good for a year, and then a year after, if they're still there, they have to come back and renew it. It's
well, just to keep this moving forward, I think what Tom recommended earlier, that we put a note that there's a big disparity between the regulations of this and taxi businesses and Uber and Lyft, but also that, like Kay mentioned, that maybe it's worth a look-see to compare with other towns and cities and see if these regulations are kind of in line with what other cities. Not that we have to do that, so we're making recommendations. So,
right. I know Salem was something that he worked a lot on.
Okay. So just kind of review and how implications of it, Uber and Lyft.
I keep seeing Officer CG raise his hand, so maybe he has some input too.
I can't see on the side.
That's okay. I just wanted to add, if it helps, that link I sent was just a little bit of the litigation going on right now between Uber, Lyft, and different communities. If you start to research it, Uber and Lyft, as soon as you start to regulate them in their communities, they're going to fight you. They're a very powerful organization. They have a lot of money, but they do a lot of self-regulating as well. They really do pretty good background checks. They make sure people have insurance and make sure the vehicles are decent shape. I've noticed the taxis, especially working in Northampton, a lot of those vehicles just seem to really go by the wayside, and the drivers change. I don't know how. Maybe they all get licensed, but they change. Their faces change so often. I don't think all of them do get licensed, and we don't know who's driving them. And if there wasn't a policy like this in place, then you really wouldn't have a way of safeguarding someone from getting into a vehicle that you know nothing about, or who's running the company, or who's even driving it.
Yeah. I really did like Kay's point about like taxis as affordable options for people that don't have phones or can't access. So I wonder if this is like a barrier to like market entry for people that might want to start a business in Easthampton. Maybe that's why there aren't any. But yeah, it's a little bit too complicated for us to deal with, I think. It seems like a whole.
Yeah, and it is a changing industry. I mean, that's just kind of.
Yeah, you also have to know that sometimes the owners have to go to the zoning board to get a permit too, because I think one of the early ones we had, he was kind of working out of his house, so he had to, before he even got came to get this part, he had to go to the zoning board to get permission for the business to be located where he wanted to locate it. So sometimes that's an additional step that the owners also have to go through.
Mm-hmm. Well, shall we leave it at that? I think we have some good notes. We're reviewing it, not changing the world here. So
Yeah.
Sorry. And then I feel like I got something else back. I did get, we had a discussion about, Kay brought up about what kind of training dispatch, the public safety dispatch officers who receive. And so we were informed that they received a grant to further educate dispatchers on 9/11 and anti-bias skills. It's through the Municipal Police Institute, and it's going to be completed by June 30th. And also Chief Alberti sent me a bunch of kind of trainings and completions that the current dispatchers have done. So there is ongoing training. That was the question. I'll forward you the email he sent me this afternoon with more details about the training. Did you have anything else to comment on that at this point? Okay. All right. Shall we? I think that was. Oh yeah, all the stuff that I got in. Okay. Yep. All right. So let's. Shall we move into the animal control? My dog's right here. He knows, and he's licensed. Mm-hmm. Barb, he's got his license on him.
Yes, not all counselors have licensed pets.
Would you like to mention their names in a public meeting?
I can mention them, but I won't. I will be glad to give that license anytime.
Harry, and I had to pay the ball tax but now they're removed.
Oh.
Oh,
You have to pay extra if they have balls.
Yeah, I just had to do that too for our new guy.
I feel like maybe okay. Well, I'll stop it there. All right, and Barb. Yeah, I was like, we're on camera here. So I'm sorry, Barb sent me this in advance, and I didn't see this email till today. Even I saw the other one, but not this one. So I can put this on the screen too. It was new developments, and new from 2013, by the way. So now we're. I don't know if more new things have come out, but in local regulation of animal control. So it seemed like your recommendation was that a lot of the state has moved forward, and some of what maybe this should be looked at with an eye of referencing a lot of the general laws,
Right.
rather than regurgitating them.
Yeah.
Are there parts in here, Barb, that and Officer CG, that you guys enforce? Like the new, like what are the common animal things that come up in the city?
Well, animal control has changed a lot because, we always used to have an animal control officer. And now that, I don't know, it's been how many years? I don't know, 4 or 5 years since we haven't had an animal control officer. So we use the Westfield Animal Clinic. Now, I don't know how often they are called to town.
I have some idea about this actually, because I presided over the intermunicipal agreement.
Okay.
The idea is like we're using their shelter, so if I remember, and Officer, you probably have you correct me if I get anything wrong here. The idea is that usually, if it's just like a loose dog or cat, like it'll often be either someone will find them and bring them to the police station, or the police will pick them up. And then if they can't find the owner inside of, by the end of the day, they'll go to the Westfield animal shelter. And then, it'll get processed from there. And sometimes their animal control people do come up here, but I think it's mostly to respond to like really specific animal situations. Did I get that right?
That's correct. If there's a nuisance call, like an animal outside chained up barking all night, nobody will answer the door, or a loose dog, we'll take them to the station where we have a couple of crates at the station. It's climate controlled, and usually the officers just spend their own money, buy them dog food, and keep them with water until Westfield will be called if people don't come pick up the animal within 24, 48 hours.
So this whole section, when the state redid the animal control law back in 2012 or 13, I mean, this has been on my to-do list, as I mentioned to Lindsay, for a long time, but there's some complicated parts to it. So like there's changes in kennels. There's also changes in definitions of nuisance dogs and dangerous dogs. We have a whole section on tethering, but the state law also covers that. So I don't know. I mean, there's sections in our dog ordinance that we definitely need to keep because they apply to us, and it makes sense. But then when it gets into the whole definition of nuisance, public safety, the dog off, a lot of the thing in here, I just wonder if the Mass General Law would probably be better to address some of these issues. Also, the fact that it mentions that we should have a municipal shelter. I don't know. There's just a lot in here that some things definitely need to be kept, but other things I'm just not sure about.
What stands out to you as needing to be kept?
Okay, so we might as well just go. Why don't we go through it section by section?
Okay.
Well, the first one, section 11-1, license required. Yes, that's the law, and that needs to be kept. Whoop, there it is. So some cities and towns go on the calendar year. we've always used April 1st as the year. So, I mean, so the first section 11-1 is fine. 11-2 is fine as well, because every city and town has their own fees. And the unneutered and unspayed females have to be more than the spayed. That's also in the law. But as soon as you get to the kennels, there's a whole section in the state law about kennels. There's commercial kennels and there's personal kennels, and commercial kennels need to be inspected, and I mean, I guess we could keep that, but there's
Barbara?
a whole thing about kennels.
I'm sorry. Do doggy daycares count as a kennel? Like if somebody was running a doggy daycare out of their home, is that regulated?
Yes, the state law does address things like that, and we don't have anything about it except in the zoning ordinance. Like if somebody wanted to do like furs of flying, if they're, a doggy daycare, they would have to go to the zoning board to get a special permit. But
so Barbara, for those sections where the state law should apply, like for the kennels, like you were mentioning, if we just remove or recommend that removal of the local sections, it will then just default to state law. Is that right?
Right. I mean, I think that the fees for kennels, I think I'd like to, okay, say there was that place on Florence Road that was going into Heritage Farm. They've since moved out of town, but they were going to have a lot of dogs there and, coming and going every day. And we didn't really know how to handle them as far as a kennel license. So in the end, we just gave them the more than 10 dogs, 125. And then we had to have, the kennel had to be inspected and there was a report to be filed. They left before their first year was up, so it's gone. But I mean, there are people in Easthampton that have more than 4 dogs in their house, but they individually license them. It's cheaper to just get 6 individual dog licenses. So the whole definition of what exactly a kennel is, a personal kennel as opposed to a commercial kennel. So even the kennel license part, I think maybe should be looked at a little bit. I think there needs to be a small reference to kennels in our local ordinance, but I think then going to the state law for the majority of it is probably the best way to do it.
Right. So, I mean, not that we can't give more detailed feedback than this, but, we could just put something in the reports saying, the Mass General Law regarding dogs has been updated, or animal control has been updated recently, and council should explore, bring this, what parts of this have become redundant, what parts of this we might want to remove.
Yep.
And, I mean, I think because that's another, just sort of like with the taxis, like that's a whole technical conversation that I think should happen. We should flag that for the council, but I don't necessarily know if we need to.
Yeah, go over everything. Yeah, I agree.
I have a small question about accessibility then too, like to remove certain things and just say that the state laws should be referenced, just like we have the ability to print on demand for the ordinances. Then would there be access to printing some of those state laws on demand through?
Anybody can go on and print them.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about people who might not have access to the internet, or, I mean, that was something we covered at some point, just in terms of the ordinances too for the city. It was just a thought.
Right, because people run into situations a lot where accessibility to printing or accessibility to internet or computers is an issue.
Right.
So it's not, I think that in terms of reviewing ordinances for equity, like not everybody has access to stuff, and we should make some accommodation, because we don't think that, you're right, the majority of people can figure it out, but we do need to accommodate those people who can't, you know?
Well, I don't think that you're going to go, I mean, the animal control thing is like really long. It's pretty technical. I think having like general descriptions of things, and then, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that we can be expected to be printing out all of the mass general laws for people.
No, I think, and I think the stuff that's going to come up more so than like the kennel licensing and that stuff is going to be the nuisance public safety stuff, right? Like that's the stuff that needs to be accessible.
Right. I'll tell you what people complain about dogs, at least in my office. It's people whose dogs bark in the middle of the night, and they, you know, those are the nuisance calls, and we usually tell them to call the police department. There's the people whose dogs roam all over the place. Like there's a dog in my neighborhood that we know because he's out all the time, and his owner has been fined numerous times, but we saw him through the backyard this morning with his accompanying black cat. It's the funniest. This is a big Siberian Husky that's getting old, and he's going through the backyard being followed by this black cat. Anyway, so yeah. So the dogs running at large is a big thing. The barking is a big thing. Another big thing is people not picking up after their dogs. And then sometimes it's people who have their dogs tied out. In most communities too, I mean, we're very unusual in that I don't fine people if they don't get a dog license. Most other communities go after people, and they add a fine onto the dog license, and sometimes they even take people to court. Now, we have never done that. But it's something that most communities do. I don't want to start doing that, but I'm just putting it out there that most people, if they don't pay by the date, they're going to start to get fines tacked on to the fee.
Sorry, we were a little bit late this year.
I think some of the penalties need to be in there, the unlicensed dogs, the roaming dogs. It's under the non-criminal disposition.
Is it that we don't have enough demand in terms of like nuisance complaints and stuff to actually justify having our own animal control officer?
It was a budget cutting thing that happened a few years ago. And Tom, you can probably, I mean, it was just a part-time position anyway.
At the time that I was sworn in, I think the animal control was, we already shared an animal control officer with multiple other communities.
Nope. No, we went right from a one person. Well, I don't know. Maybe he did some hill towns too.
Yeah, I think it was us and also like Westhampton, Huntington or something.
Yeah, maybe Huntington. Yeah. And
then from there, it went to us doing a consolidated thing with Eastfield.
Yeah.
And so that's the current, and that's been the situation for most of the time that I've been.
It was since Karen was mayor, I think. Yep.
Oh, so and I came in after Karen. So I think that actually happened prior to my.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, the point is, it's been a while, but I mean, I think that, like, you know, I'm sure that there's probably some. I've certainly called the police about loose dogs and gotten responses be like, "Wait, this is a different loose dog than the person that right down the street called about. Like, how many loose dogs are on that street right now?" So, yep. But it's not this committee's job to make budget recommendations, but yeah, that certainly does seem to be a real point of interest in the.
We used to have there was an animal shelter up behind the town lodging house on Oliver Street. We used to have one. So.
Given that we're sharing, sorry.
What?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Kay. You were
just a quick note. I mean, it's, you know, if we are using the Westfield Animal Control Officer, it's not something that is well known in the community, and how, you know, there may be people who are reluctant to call the police on their neighbors and yet are concerned about a dog's well-being. So why don't we really know? Like, why isn't it obvious, like, what the process is if you want to report a concern about a dog's well-being or safety, that, like, here's the, you know, we use the Westfield Animal Control Officer and you can call the animal control officer. To my knowledge, there's not anything on the city website that says, like, if you have a concern about an animal's welfare, like, here's a phone number to call. You know, it all gets filtered by the police station, and somebody might be concerned about a dog but not necessarily want to report their neighbors to the police, you know.
I think there might be something through the police department's website, or their section of the.
Can residents call Westfield directly, or is it supposed to go through our own department?
I'll yield to the police officer about that one.
Yeah, but I believe they have to call the police department. If they called Westfield direct, the Westfield would tell them to call our police department.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you search for animals, there's not like a there's something about chickens and bats going through the health department.
bats.
But I literally, like, there's city department animal control phone number is on there from 2016, but is that even still accurate?
Look under the police department.
Yeah, but yes, and I will. But if somebody is looking for help or looking for a solution and they search the city website, like, what comes up is potentially a number that's not accurate anymore. Like, how would you know to, like, search the city? Because we're talking about, when we're reviewing the ordinances too, like, we're not just talking about, like, do they make sense or are they archaic and obsolete? We're talking about accessibility for people, and accessibility of information is, like, a big deal, and something that people have expressed a lot of frustration with. Like, I know that the website is not necessarily the most succinct and accessible, you know. So it's, if you search for the word animal, like, something should come up about, like, what the city policy is if there's an issue with an animal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it is on the police department thing, when you search for that term, the link should come up to the section of that website that deals with that. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So, like,
the reason why
that's
it's
an
hard to
accessibility.
respond, I think, is because our website is such a disaster. So
Well, everybody does know that we're getting a new website.
we're getting a new one. So right, I do know that. So that's why it's like,
Yeah.
we are getting a new one. So
Is there a timeline? Because I know it's been in discussion for a long time, and I know the mayor had talked about using
we're doing
some CARES money.
in June. So I'm thinking in July or by the summer.
Great.
I just have a quick question, and Tom, I think just given your participation in putting the multi-jurisdiction agreement together for the control, there's some of these like animal control officer authority to restrain, and municipal animal shelter. Some of these things might, I don't know how they interact with that other agreement and whether or not they conflict, and if so, is that an issue?
So to start, I mean, I think that to Barb's point, we probably do want to really look this over to see how it conflicts or contrasts with MGL right now. That being said, I don't think that us, like, signing an intermunicipal agreement with Westfield would cause any problems there, because it just gives the Westfield folks the power to do this stuff in Easthampton. Same as like we had a inspector of weights and measures
Yep.
hired, and we realized it just made more sense. So we now share an inspector of weights and measures with Northampton, and that inspector has the same authority in Easthampton that they do in.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
I can't find anything on the police website. It's not under operations or resources or FAQs that I can find. I mean, it's not to say that it's not there, but I can't find it.
I think we have to be careful too, and this goes through the whole ordinance, not just dogs or whatever, that you can't just look at what we do right now, because things can change. So it has to be general enough so it's not specific to 2021, because as we're seeing right now, looking through here, there's things that used to be done that aren't done. So I think the ordinances need to be general enough that they stand the test of time.
Good point.
That's what I think.
President mentions animal control. Here we go. Animal control. On the Easthampton, Mass. Police Department. You may also submit a complaint of vicious or barking dog by clicking here. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a complaint on record from my former dog. Oh my gosh. Okay. So there is this page here that seems pretty thorough on what to do.
It took a lot to get to that, though, even from Google.
Well, I Googled Easthampton, Google animal control, and it kind of came right up.
Yeah, for me, it was like the fourth or fifth link down.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah. I think information design is definitely a known major issue for this topic and all topics within Easthampton. So hopefully there's going to be good user design implemented and user testing, a lot of usability testing.
What is the?
I'm going to be so excited if there's a new website.
If anybody knows off the top of their head, 529-1418, that number. I don't know if that's.
Where's that number?
When I Google Easthampton Animal Control, you know how there's like the list of websites, but then off to the side, there's usually like an address and that sort of information. And that's the number that's listed with 50
What's the number? 529 what?
1418.
I think that's an old.
Right.
And, lots of old stuff will come up when you Google.
Just calling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. So yeah. What are the biggest? Do we get a lot of dog complaints in the city? Officer Cici at the police station? I'm just curious.
It seems to be a fair amount in the summertime. In the wintertime, no. And it goes in waves. Sometimes I don't get a dog complaint for a while, and other times it seems like we're doing nothing but chasing loose dogs and taking barking complaints.
Are those the top two things, loose dogs and barking?
Those are the top two. And if unfortunately a dog or cat or somebody gets hit in the road, that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Alrighty. Do you feel like I think we have got a good kind of overview recommendation for this chapter for someone to take on. The next chapter is chapter 12, environmental ordinances. So Should we do that one next time? Just chapter 12? Okay. I wanted to let you know, I've talked to Peg because I was kind of already starting to think about how we're going to present this to the council in a final kind of document. And she and I talked to her about creating like a spreadsheet, and there'd be kind of like the topic, a recommendation, maybe our recommended next, like we see it going to public safety, or just like kind of our thoughts on it, and then like, or ordinance or rules or whatever, and then like kind of like priority high, like, so it could be a document that the city council can kind of move through, kind of like and take action on sections, so that it'll be easier for us once it gets to the full council to push things off in the right directions. So I'll probably start drafting that soon with what we have, so we can look at that at a later meeting.
That sounds great.
All right, so let's see, let's schedule the next meeting. I always forget that, so let's do that. Do you want to do like, is Monday or Tuesday better for people?
It depends. I'm away the whole first week in June.
Okay, we could do June 7th or 8th.
Either.
8th, I think we usually hold that date for ordinance.
Okay, I know the
The
following
7th.
Tuesday we've got public safety. 7th, that works, Helen?
That worked for me. I mean,
Works okay for me, yeah.
Okay.
At 6:30
So June
again?
7th, 6:30, yeah. And who would I need to, Barb or anyone from this, the next chapter, chapter 12, should I reach out to the Conservation Commission to review it, or who should I reach out and invite to our meeting that would?
Well, Board of Public Works, and is that the one that has the stormwater management that's
Yeah.
on the council agenda tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
They're seeking to amend that. I don't have it in front of me, so I
Okay.
can't see all the other sections. I can't remember them.
Okay, so it's got, here, I'll push it up on the screen. I've got it right here. Let's see.
Okay. So that'd be fire department. I would have the fire department.
Okay.
Then you, DPW, brownfields, that's probably Jeff, maybe. Right to farm. Yeah, we've got an agricultural commission. They're not very active. And the last two would also be DPW. So fire, Jeff, DPW, and the agriculture.
Wetlands would be, wetlands is in conservation.
Brownfields development, maybe?
Okay. Illicit discharge detection and elimination ordinance.
Those are both DPW.
Okay.
And we do have an agricultural commission, so they would be the ones that would be a good one to invite for the right to farm ordinance.
Okay. Agriculture Commission. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your time, your presence. If anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Helen,
yes.
Tom.
Aye.
Okay, Omar.
Aye.
He's like, no, we're staying all night. Sam.
Aye.
Okay, all right. Thank you
Aye.
for journey. Aye. Yeah, okay, there you are. Thanks for coming, Officer Seatsy, and for your follow-up emails. And we'll see you all on June 7th.
Good night.
Good night.